shield maiden is never. There is no shield maidens anywhere. We just got our first glimpse of War of the Rohirrim, and in particular, Hera, the hero of the story that doesn't exist in Tolkien's world at all by that name. But let's take a look, okay? Hey, look, this is Hera right here on the left. Well, there's Helm. That looks good. And let me preface this. I'm not a fan of anime. It's just never struck a chord. I understand people who are, just, so give me that. I'm not a huge fan. But this is Hera of the rewritten story of Helm Hammerhand. And here we see the real first picture of her holding a sword. And that got me thinking. Because she doesn't exist in Tolkien's world. In fact, the only phrase that we get from Tolkien about this character in the appendices to The Return of the King is, Freka asked the hand of Helm's daughter for his son Wolf. That's it. So let's set the table for what the story of Helm Hammerhand is according to Tolkien. So Helm Hammerhand, right there, he was king of the Mark in the year 2754 of the Third Age. And at a council in Meduseld where he'd have some of the lords of the land come in, one of them, a distrustful Dunlending named Freka, asked for his hand's daughter in marriage. Thus that phrase, he asked for the hand of Helm's daughter in marriage. That's all we get from Tolkien about his daughter, who now we have as the main character in this story. Helm remarks on how Freka has grown big, particularly because he's mostly fat. So Freka then insults Helm. Helm kills him with one blow of his fist, Hammerhand. Right? 4 years later, Rohan is invaded by Wolf, Freka's son, and he seizes Edoras. Helm's son Haleth dies defending Meduseld, and Helm and his people retreat to the Hornburg, which will later be known as Helm's Deep. It's an intense winter, 5 months of winter, I think he said. Hama, Helm's other son, is lost in the snow. So one of these guys over here, he's lost in the snow. Helm becomes a deadly avenger then. That would become a fearful legend to his enemies. Tolkien wrote this: the dread of Helm alone was worth many in the defense of the burg. He would go out by himself, clad in white, and stalk like a snow troll into the camps of his enemies and slay many men with his hands. His wraith would walk among the foes of Rohan and kill men with fear. One night, Helm did not return from one of these sorties, I guess you could say, but the men heard his horn blowing and still didn't see him. The next morning, though, they saw a, quote, white figure standing still on the dike. There stood Helm, dead as stone, but his knees were unbent. Now, we don't know precisely how he died, what caused his death, the cold, a wound, but it's not said. That's his body standing still, his knees unbent in defiance of those who took his land. This here capped his deadly legend. Freyolf then, not Hera, Freyolf drives out. Freyolf is the Helm's sister Hild, her son. He leads the Rohirrim, assaults Meduseld, slays Wolf, and retakes Edoras. Then he drives out the rest of the Dunlendings who have taken over the land, even from Isengard, and becomes king. Helm is laid in one of those mounds you remember from like Theoden was after he perished, and so was Theodred. He's laid in the 9th mound, and as Tolkien writes, the white Cymbalmina grew there most thickly so that the mound seemed to be snow-clad. So there you go. That's the story of Helm's Deep. Or, well, it was named Helm's Deep after that, but the story of Helm Hammerhand. So in this picture here, it's not giving me a lot of hope. And let me read why. Let me read this article, a part of this article here, a few quotes that Peter Jackson, well, really, it's Philippa Boyens. Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh are now executive producers, which doesn't mean a whole lot. But here's what they wrote. This new movie is the first to feature a female protagonist, a headstrong young woman named Hera, who rides horses and who communes with the great eagles. The eagles are used a little too profusely here. Between this here and the Rings of Power, I'm a little... Okay. Her father is Helm Hammerhand, voiced with typical brio by Brian Cox, who Helm's Deep would eventually be named after. Hera rejects the hand of Wolf, Luke Pasqualina. Again, Hera doesn't... Tolkien writes she doesn't reject him. It's actually that Helm rejects him. Okay. I'm not too concerned about that. Whose father Freka then, Sean Dooley, challenges Helm to a fight. It doesn't end well for him. All right. This is where it gets interesting. While this is a lot of setup, you can both see where the story is going for the War of the Rohirrim, with this interfamily squabble blowing up into full-scale battle, and Hera. Where's Freylof, right? We said Helm's sister son Freylof. Hera eventually having to lead her people, calling on the power of a seemingly lost tribe of female warriors. Wait, what? Wait, what? What? Wait, what? The female warriors? Where did this come from? Okay, you know where it came from? Eowyn, Shield Maiden, and apparently the word Shield Maiden is going to be used, that they're going to get a tribe of Shield Maidens, the Shield Maiden, the lost tribe of the Shield Maidens of Rohan. What? Where is this? Okay, so I did a thing, and I'll show you what I did. I went through the people of Middle Earth. I went through the letters of J.R.R. Tolkien. All right, the Peoples of Middle Earth. It has the notes to the House of Eorl, which is the part of the appendix in the Return of the King. Right, the notes that Tolkien wrote, that Christopher Tolkien, his son, put through the ringer for us to kind of give us guidance and information about how Rohan was envisioned, how the House of Eorl was envisioned in the Return of the King. And then I also went through this here, which is the J.R.R. Tolkien Companion and Guide, Reader's Guide. It has pretty much everything you could want when it comes to researching characters, people, places in Middle Earth. I mean, look it up. It's the most complete resource you can get. Shield Maiden is never. There is no Shield Maidens anywhere in this. Okay, maybe I'm missing it. I do have. I mean, you can see I have all the other books here. I didn't have time to go through all of them. Maybe I missed it. I'd never seen it, but yet they're going to create this new female missing warrior clan that's going to come help Hera save them from Wolf. You know, here's the thing. People are tired. I'm tired of the girl boss thing becoming the only way to tell a story. The only way to tell an action tale is to drive these girl bosses right into the front, smother us with the things that we don't believe, and change the story that Tolkien wrote. It's boring, it's predictable, and it's not even as good as anything he wrote, which brings me to the point that surprisingly, George R.R. Martin made. Now, when it comes to writing, this guy, right, we're still waiting, what, 13, 12 years on, 10 years? I don't even know. It's been a long time since his last book came out. There have been, what, 2 or 3 TV series either made or in production since he wrote his last book. But here's what he said. Everywhere you look, there are more screenwriters and producers eager to take great stories and make them their own. Yeah, in quotes, right? Make them their own. It does not seem to matter whether the source material was written by Stan Lee, Charles Dickens, Ian Fleming, Roald Dahl, Ursula Le Guin, J.R.R. Tolkien, Mark Twain, Raymond Chandler, Jane Austen, or well, anyone. No matter how major a writer it is, no matter how great the book, there always seems to be someone on hand who thinks he can do better, eager to take the story and improve on it. The book is the book, the film is the film, they will tell you, as if they were saying something profound. Then they make the story their own. They never make it better, though. See, let me zoom in on that. They never make it better, though. 999 times out of 1,000, they make it worse. Yes, they make it worse. And by taking a character that is not even named in Tolkien's world, by taking a clan of warrior women to help her defeat the warrior men, the Dunlendings, right? It's not like there were some wild men who didn't know how to battle. This is established small kingdoms. These are established fiefdoms that these people ruled, and he had Dunlendings and Easterlings and everything protecting Meduseld, but they think they can make it better. Here's the thing. There is a story that Tolkien wrote about a powerful woman who held her people together, and it wasn't with a grand sword. It wasn't with something like this. It was the story of Haleth in the Silmarillion of the house of Haldad, I think. She led her people westward, led them through misery. Her father died, her brother died, so she was the last leader left. She led them through orc raids and everything, even Caranthir, the son of Feanor, he saw her strength and offered her land. She refused it and then decided to go and take her own land, like grab land for herself. Like, this is, I don't want to be sworn to anyone, right? That she had power, and Tolkien wrote about her, but they're making something he never wrote with this character. And this is, I just want them to write what he wrote, because what he wrote is better. And like George R. R. Martin said, 999 out of 1,000 times you're making it worse. And in the same way, right? Peter Jackson still, it's good by a long stretch, but it's not as good as the books. But now they're taking things like, at least he said, at least Peter Jackson said, you know, we're doing it to honor the professor. We're doing the spirit of Tolkien. We wouldn't want to put in there anything that he wouldn't put in himself. Tolkien would not put in a roaming hidden band of shield maidens to protect Hera. Why weren't they protecting them originally? Oh, see, all these questions come up because they don't think it through. The details don't matter to them like they matter to Tolkien. If you're going to tell the story of a powerful woman, go back, tell the story of the House of Haleth the leader, who defied the orcs, who survived her people, who even in the end, Tolkien said, she had a bodyguard of women. See, he wrote about it there, but not here. I want to see Tolkien's stories written. I don't want to see your own story, as George R. R. Martin said. I don't want to see it seeing you, oh, I can improve on it because it's for modern times. It's even this director, you know, who feels they can make a better story about this because they have to make it relevant to the world. Here's what he said. This is the story of the most powerful king in Rohan's history, someone who defeated his enemies with his bare fists. Why did his lineage have to end with him? I think there's a lesson in hubris there, and also a need for responsibility and awareness and their power. We live in an age where all over the world we face the reality of war again. What then is power? What then is the responsibility of those who possess it? It is something they need to think about by thinking together with those who don't. See, they're making it better because they think they can tell us things about this world that are important, when the story matters, what Tolkien wrote matters, and Tolkien's intentions mattered in what to tell the story. And to start by saying, you know, we're going to start putting a morality plane to this. We're going to start having some details about how this relates to the world. That always, 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 always makes the story worse, because if that's your priority, the story will decline and decline and decline until we find it boring, until we find it preachy, until we don't want it anymore. So we've already got the preachy aspect of the shield maidens, that they know better, so they're going to be shield maidens. Why have Freyalaf in there, Helm's sister's son, who was born a warrior, who grew up a warrior, who learned to take over of the people of Rohan and lead them forward? No, we're going to have Hera, who would never have been groomed for this, who would never have been taught in battle, and we're going to give her some random shield maidens. Maybe they'll be saved by eagles. I hope not. So anyway, there you have it. This is what we get. This is what we get with modern writers and modern audiences. At least there's no forced diversity here, I guess, right? Oh, guys, take the silver lining when you can get it, right? That's not to say the shield maidens that we haven't seen yet won't be there. Oh, man. All right. There's my thoughts there on Helm Hammerhand, and who he was and who he's becoming, and Hera, who didn't exist with that name and had one phrase, one body part mentioned, her hand, by Tolkien in all of his works, by the shield maidens who don't matter, who have never been mentioned, other than Eowyn was called the shield maiden of Rohan. That's what we got. Hey, if you like what you heard, subscribe, give us a like. More people will find out that Tolkien's worth reading, that his original works are far greater. They surpass anything that you can see or experience outside of his exact words. Do that. And follow us on our podcast, Exploring Tolkien. Just look that up in any podcast app, Exploring Tolkien. We're going to be talking more about the War of the Rohirrim. And then we're going to be doing an entire read through in depth of The Hobbit. So join us there.